Folks, thanks for joining us today. My name is John Dubas with Premier Marketing. I have Katie Novotny on the line with us today, too, as we discuss a topic that's of great interest to folks that are aimed at the senior space. We'll put it that way. When we look at what's covered by Medicare and what's not, sometimes that's a bit of a misnomer because of the folks that are covered by Medicare itself. And we want to make certain that we can go through and speak to the portfolio and products that are applicable across the board, but also give you an opportunity if you are concentrating on the senior market, on the Medicare market, that you have the tools that you need to go back and cover the holes, so to speak. And so what we'll do today is go through some things based off of Medicare coverage. We'll spend 50 to 60 minutes thereabouts discussing some of these possibilities and how cross-selling and some of the basics can make a difference for us, but more importantly, for the beneficiaries that we serve. Today's presentation is being recorded, and you'll note that will be posted on our website at premiersmi.com and on our YouTube channel as well. And in the software package, you'll see that there's a section for both questions and chat. We ask that you put your questions in the questions box. We find that we do address most of them through the course of the presentation, but we want to make certain that we get you the detail you need to maximize the return of the investment of your time in participating with us here today. And since the topic may seem remedial for some and a little complicated for others, we present on a basis that applies to a broad spectrum of agents. So on some of this, it might be a review for some of you. For some of you, it might be brand new. And for those of us that do a lot in Medicare health space and perhaps some ancillary products, some of the things that Katie will bring to the table will open up a whole additional market for us that we need to serve in a part of a very underserved market. And so with that all said, let's start out with a little bit of level set. And that includes a level set as to who Premier Marketing is. And Katie, I apologize. I left a picture on there inadvertently. I thought I had taken it off. Wink, wink. Premier Marketing is a national marketing organization founded in 1968 that's part of the Integrity Marketing Platform, licensed in all 50 states. We act as an insurance wholesaler working through independent insurance agents such as yourself through contracts that are at the highest possible commission levels, with recruiting contracts available to those who qualify. And we do so through a full portfolio of products. And this is important to address today's topic because these are necessary for us to make certain that we are covering all aspects of care for our prospects and our clients. And that includes a full portfolio of basic medical coverages for the Medicare population, if I may phrase it that way, where we have the Medicare Advantage and Medicare Supplement programs to help with the shortfall in the medical cost containment of the Medicare program, and also the standalone Part D prescription drug programs. But we do cover a full portfolio of life insurance and annuity products, including final expense life insurance and pre-need plans, a real concentration on long-term and short-term care programs and disability income plans, but also a full portfolio of ancillary benefits to cover those specific needs of our prospects and clients that are of concern to them and are of great value to us as well. The Medicare Advantage products, it's a full portfolio of the national carriers and many of the strong regionals to make certain that we cover what is hot in your market and what gives you the greatest opportunity to serve your prospects and your clients. And that same philosophy carries over into the standalone prescription drug plans. In most cases, these come as part of the contract with the MA programs. A couple of notable exceptions. Mutual of Omaha is a separate program from their other offerings. And Clever RX is not a Part D prescription drug plan. It's a discount program instead. The Medicare supplements, we want to make certain that we cover the range of the Medicare beneficiaries. And we see a discussion as to what is best for someone when it comes to base medical between Medicare Advantage and Medicare supplements. Well, that's a decision that's based on our client's perception for a good part of it. However, we want to make certain that we have a full portfolio to offer so that we're competitive and top of class across the board on the medical coverages, and our portfolio of Medicare supplements enable us to do that. And that same philosophy here carries over into the ancillary products, where the leaders in each of these categories are there for you to address the specific needs and wants of your prospects and clients. It gives us that additional leverage to market in another fashion. It gives us, of course, that opportunity to address that need, but it also creates an additional revenue stream for ourselves and our agencies. So when we look at the Medicare market overall, you hear the aging of the baby boomers, the silver tsunami, 1 every 10 seconds, 10,000 plus a day. And if you look at things based on age, it's a near exponential growth, but it's not a totally accurate number in the fact that we're finding a number of folks that are working past the age of 65 and deferring accessing all of their Medicare benefits for one reason or another. There are those of us on the tail end of the baby boomer generation that, well, hey, if we want full Social Security benefits, we got to work till we're 67. So we got to take a little bit of a mindset as to why someone is deferring their benefits and how our product portfolio will help them as well, but also take into account the percentage of folks that are on Medicare because of disability and are actually under the age of 65, which tempers some of the programs that we have available. And we need to be prepared to address that population as well, because they have choices. And we want to make certain that we are addressing them no matter what avenue they're taking for covering their needs as fully as they feel necessary. And that includes base coverages when they're first coming on to Medicare with the base programs. So we talk about all these different opportunities that folks have, and in the Medicare world, we're thinking a little bit of, oh, gee, John, the open enrollment period, the annual election period has passed. That opportunity's closed. Far from it. Kaiser Family Foundation tells us that the vast majority of people on Medicare haven't done an evaluation of their program year over year. And that's important for us to go out and make certain that the base coverages then are to their advantage, regardless of their base of choice, Medicare Advantage versus Medicare Supplement. But it also gives us the opportunity then to go through and say, hey, this is a misconception as to how this is covered. We need to discuss that. And it allows us then an inverse of that as well. We're approaching those gaps in coverage, gives us an opportunity to go back and address those folks that hadn't done a review year over year. And we all know how that can greatly affect someone's pocketbook simply by contentment of following the path that they've always been on. We do also have the opportunity to make certain that they understand what we're saying. There are so many acronyms in the Medicare world. CMS's website is telling us, well, they've got a definition guide for 4,420 of them. Are we making certain that all of the information that we're conveying is actually understood, and that we are able then to make certain as well that we're limiting our use of acronyms when possible in order to make certain that we are communicating as clearly as we can. We do that because, hey, they need our help. They, the infamous they, our prospect pool. And when we look at the Medicare population, we see all these lovely tools that are put out there by the government to help people understand what they have and what they don't have, and folks quite simply aren't using them. So when we speak of today's topics, regardless of the regulations that we have in the Medicare world that affects a good portion of our portfolio, the programs that we speak of today, in many cases, are not subject to these election periods. And we want to make certain then that we realize how we approach those coverages, either through some of our marketing efforts in the different special election periods or election programs that are out there. We can't market the OEP because it's a switch period between different MA programs, or to go back to original Medicare, and the government says we can't. However, we need to be aware of the possibilities that brings for us to initiate other discussions. And then if a special election period allows us to change or alter some of the base coverages they have, well, we're ahead of the game there. But it does open then that discussion with all these special election periods that the carriers remind us of, have we then been able to deliver the information someone needs to make the decision about the programs we're offering? And they go beyond the base medical that we speak of all the time on a lot of the webinars. So not only do we look at the gaps in coverages and the opportunities that folks have, but we need to look at how folks can process that information and then make a decision based off of it. So do we have the systems in play that can help people with that decision? Because sometimes we're going to sit across the kitchen table like we used to, shake hands, kiss babies, get elected. Sometimes we're going to deliver all this information on a virtual basis, and folks are going to go, I've done my study, this is what I want to do. Sometimes it's a bit of both, a hybrid situation. And we're doing so because the population that we're talking to, that we're addressing, has become increasingly digitally savvy. As we have a greater number of people aging into Medicare, the use of electronic and digital communication, well, it's been part of their life for quite a while. But the population that's already on Medicare is much more comfortable than they used to be in having this information delivered or searching for it online through an electronic means, obviously. That's important because we've had them trained. We've been trained by our doctors, our specialists. Even the hospitals and dentists are using a lot of things electronically to deliver services. Parts of our lives. Many people celebrate their faith online. So we have a population that's much more willing and able to absorb the information we give them. And because of our technology that we have with our organization and some of the tools that are out there, we're going to be able to deliver upon that regardless of the product base. So as we talk about what isn't covered by Medicare and how that helps us sell, we're going to take information from Medicare and we're going to look at how we can help people understand exactly what they have and exactly what they don't. And the government will give us some help with different tools that are out there, as I mentioned and slid through before. But these then create the basis of a discussion moving forward to a degree as well. Folks, in October, if you're on Medicare, you're going to get a copy of the Medicare and You Guide, up to date as possible as it can be. The initial piece doesn't have the coming year's numbers. That comes a week or two or three afterwards. But regardless of how it's delivered, either through the Postal Service or electronically, it then tells us what we have and what we don't. The vast majority of people, they're not reviewing their coverages. Well, I'll guarantee you, they're not reading this thing cover to cover. A few probably are. The obsessive compulsives like myself will go in there and go, gee, how's that changed? Is that on a different page or whatever? But it gives us then the opportunity to utilize a third-party tool to validate much of what we say and how it comes about as an effect on a person's coverage. So some of the basic things, we're going to look to make certain that the base medicals are covered, as we discuss in many presentations. Okay, how do we cover the shortfall if someone goes into the hospital? We want to make certain that those deductibles and co-insurance and co-pays or whatever else has some sort of financial hedge to make certain that, well, gee, it's covered one way or another. We're doing the same thing with a lot of the Part B services. And this is, of course, the coverages that most people access much more frequently than a hospital stay, obviously. But how is that coming about then that we are delivering upon the options? Well, that's a different presentation to a degree, but we have the options to make certain that we cover it through a Medigap policy, those standardized, modernized med sups that we talked about briefly as an option. We want to make certain that we can quote those in an efficient fashion, and gives us then an additional way of discussing those options within that option. And it opens up cross-selling opportunities we'll see across the board. So the tools are there to help in that regard as well. We also have the information that's available on the Medicare Advantage plans. Unless someone's lived in a cave without a TV, even with an antenna, there are a million commercials going on with some sort of celebrity spokesperson that goes through and it speaks to the all-in-one plans. It's a bit of a confusion to many of the people on Medicare. It's really a validation of a qualified agent being able to explain, well, hey, that's a little bit of a Frankenstein of a whole bunch of different plans. Here's what's available in our market and how do we address that? So some of the things we have then, and there's an opportunity where it might be a publication or a sort of a publicity campaign that opens up an opportunity for us to discuss the base programs and once again go into what is not covered as well. The tools we have to help, I'll go into the Medicare Center program in greater detail at the end of the presentation, but this tool can really help us go through and utilize the CRM not only to keep all the information we need in there on it for a year-to-year plan comparison, but it then gives us then that same contact management system so we can go back to people and speak to them about, hey, this is another need within the population, or we work it in a subtle fashion of this is a referral program for folks you may know, whatever it takes to make certain we stay in front of our book of business and fill those needs can make a huge difference to us. So one of the first things we need to really make certain that they realize, of course, is how are prescription drugs covered? And I put this in here for a couple of different reasons. One, it's not just the coverage for the medications that a person picks up at a pharmacy. We want to also make certain that folks are cognizant of the fact that certain medications are covered under Part B, and that might affect some choices for some of our other coverages that come into play. So if a medication is administered in a medical facility by a trained professional, well, that's not a Part D drug, that's a Part B drug. And we want to make certain that we understand then the clues that gives us to start a discussion down the road. And once again, utilizing this system can, with that detail, enables us to stay in front of our population base that we're serving and allows us to do so in the vernacular of J.J. Walker on TV. It's free. You don't have to worry about the cost of this support system and its ability to cross-sell. So some of the other things we need to look at, of course, is what I used to refer to in my presentations to the public as the good, the bad, and the ugly of different programs. And one of the things that can be a little bit bad and ugly is how some of the more expensive processes, in a manner of speaking, are covered or not. And that includes some of the things for the prevalent illnesses that we run across, including cancer or critical illnesses. And we'll find in many circumstances that when a person has just traditional Medicare, they are blessed with the great big C, as John Wayne used to say, cancer. How is that covered and how is it not? And we want to make certain that if they've got base coverages, they're going to realize it's 20% after the Part B deductible without a stop loss on it. That is a real cold cup of coffee, in a manner of speaking, for a lot of folks. And it makes them realize that, hey, I got to make certain I address this need, but in that potential, it's not just the cost of fighting that illness, then it's the ramifications thereafter. So if someone has cancer or they go into a hospital because of a heart attack or whatever, when they come out of that hospital, how are some of those coverages handled? And that's one of the things we want to address here very shortly. We do have different programs in the community that can help us with other needs that come about because of circumstances. We all know the statistics of how bankruptcies are driven by medical expenses in many cases. What can we do to alleviate some of those other pressures that may not be a product we sell, but a service we deliver? And that's some of the things that will differentiate us from some of our competition in our chosen profession and enables us then to create the relationships with people we deal with to maximize our marketing potential, in a manner of speaking, by doing a bit of so-called service work through the referral process, the best lead generator we can come up with across the board. The Medicare and You book does have the lovely page that really lays out some of the things that we're going to talk about today, and that's the what's not covered by Part A and Part B. And we'll see some of it that directly affects the ancillary products we have, the dental, vision, hearing pieces of it. But one of the big things that we need to concentrate on, and some of the things that folks don't realize in many cases aren't covered by the government, or assume that I don't really know the difference between Medicare and Medicaid. How's a stay in a nursing home going to be covered? Some of the things that come into play there. We want to talk about that because it can be a very big difference in the validity of someone's plan for retirement. And we want to make certain that we're addressing that specific need. As I mentioned, DVH is pretty simple, not underwritten. We got a ton of choices within our organization, and it does give us the opportunity to market in a unique fashion as well. So we want to make certain that we're looking at some of the demand product, and a lot of that is driven through dental care. We can help in that regard. Once again, that system has dental programs in there where we can quote right out of Medicare Center if you have an attachment to a particular carrier that's offering those programs. They have support systems in their electronic systems to help you in that information dissemination and sales process as well. This is a big thing we need to really address. And I had a question pop up here really quickly. We'll address, and then we'll ask Katie to help us out with some of this discussion here when we talk about long-term care. The question is, the plans that offer reduction in Part B premiums, how do we help them get those reductions? And are there any cons to highlighting these plans for that reason? A couple of different things that takes us that there, Jordan, is those plans are, well, that benefit is ingrained in the different Medicare Advantage programs, and they're part of a regular enrollment process with any MA program. It's a question of choice of type of plan. What you'll find in many of those circumstances is some of the programs that are offering that reduction in Part B plan, a give back, a buyback, however someone wants to address that. It will affect some of the other benefits that are part of that program, because there are only so many healthcare dollars, and how the company chooses to allot them in the benefit process. Well, that can make a difference not only in the fact that is there a reduction in Part B premiums offered, and if so, to what degree. So you'll see some of that come into play, and you'll see that in many of the programs that are aimed at the veterans population, where they're MA only, Medicare Advantage without the drug benefit, and that can make a difference. We want to make certain that the pros and cons of every plan is covered, and the cost, in a manner of speaking, as to what comes with a particular choice for those individuals. So that's the response to that, Jordan, if I may. But if we look at the long-term care programs and we bring in our friend Katie Novotny to shed a little light on some of this, because long-term care for some folks that haven't been in that market can be a bit of a scary prospect, in a manner of speaking, because it's something that we really need to address, and some of us just don't know how to do it. And so that's why we asked Katie to come in and visit with us to help us with how this shortfall can be handled. And it's addressed in the Medicare and You book as well. And you have guides for the short term. So Katie, if you don't mind, can I ask you to come on and we will look at some of the programs that you have within our portfolio to help address these needs, sometimes in a more of a traditional outlook, but also with some of the more recent ways of addressing this need. And I'll finally shut up and let you talk.
No, thanks so much, John. I appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely. I think first and foremost, when we're talking about what things are not covered, one of the most common questions I get is this not covered X, Y, and Z? But number one is going to be the custodial care. Skilled care can be covered, and we get questions regarding veterans care. What is covered in certain levels of that? And I think that's where a conversation needs to be had with your clients. There are so many misconceptions regarding what long-term care is, what it covers, even what solutions are out there. So what the one thing I would welcome ahead of time, and before we even kind of dive into the whole conversation, is let's have the conversation between Premier and you guys, the agents of all the new long term care solutions, being short term care, long term care, the hybrids. I know the combo products have been a topic of conversation on the life insurance chassis, but everybody knows what the annuities are doing right now. So the annuity long term care combo solutions are also becoming quite popular. If you're working in the over 65 market, which I know you are if you're on this webinar, the short term care market is expanding rapidly as well. So I just want to make sure you guys know that it's not the traditional old long term care products that we've seen in the past, and it's specifically not nursing home only. So, that being said, we've also seen this type of planning change a lot where people did not realize that Medicare was not going to cover the home care type products, specifically homemaker services. We do have cash paying products that will provide for home care only. So those are big things post pandemic. Those are becoming things that are often sought after. Easier underwriting, lower premiums, and specifically, people have seen it throughout the media and even personal experiences. They do not want to go to facilities. They're trying to stay at home with their loved one as much as possible. And we here at Premier, we have quite a few different offerings that are allowing them to do that.
That's awesome. And I think part of what we're looking at too is choices, like you said, and the pandemic really shone a light on the options that people had. And you saw a lot of people being pulled out of facilities to go home. They were worried about some of the things that were happening in long-term care facilities, and the ability to offer those other programs that allow for that care in home, I think is can't be underestimated. And one of the things that we hear a lot of times, and I'll throw this as a point of discussion to you, Katie, is, well, I don't need long-term care because I'm a veteran. I'm going to go in one of those facilities. Or we'll also hear, well, we'll just go Medicare and Medicaid. And I can personally testify on the part of the veterans coverage is if you can get into a facility and in what time fashion. When my brother had a massive stroke and he went into a VA facility, it was after a period of time before a bed opened up and he could actually get into a facility. So part of that, I think, has to come into play when we talk about planning for these different services. And I think, Katie, you alluded to that a bit earlier as to, gee, just because you're a vet doesn't mean that you're totally covered either. You talked a little bit about some of the things with, how we handle things coming out of the uh, medical facilities, coming out of a hospital. When someone goes out of a medical facility with traditional Medicare, they had the 3-day stay, they're going into a skilled nursing facility. How do some of the folks that are active in the long-term care space deal with that 100-day period? Or is it a factor like many folks used to use in the past in determining coverages? Or how are you saying that's affecting choices within the options?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that in a lot of people will use that as a guideline. We have seen that change quite a bit. It used to be standardized. We used to see a deductible or what we call the elimination period in the long term care world be set at 90 days. We are seeing people try to shorten that. And as I said, in the over 65 market, we see a tremendous amount of short term care offerings. So with that, we see an elimination period closer to the 20, which actually coincides really nicely to the Medicare benefits. But what we're trying to do is minimize the out of pocket cost. So with the 90 days, or even better, the 20-day on the short term care, if we can do it, if people can afford it, what we're trying to do is we're building around that. So they really are utilizing the Medicare benefit for the skilled nursing facilities along with the elimination period guidelines, if you will, on the long term care or short term care.
That's awesome. Thank you. And I think part of it as agents, as we have experience with the base coverages that go into the medical portion of handling the cost, we see that an increasing number of people are going into MA programs. And for those of you that do a comparison of plans between plan carriers or plan types, the skilled nursing facility is one of the holes in some of the coverages with Medicare Advantage. So it really brings about a discussion we need to have with people when it comes to, okay, not only how are things covered when something happens, but how do we deal with the ramifications going back out? And that does then, of course, give us the opportunity for those discussions on long-term care and how they are and are not covered. And we want to make certain then that, Katie, we can look at the different possibilities that someone has. So you spoke of the hybrid situations where that is a fairly new development through life insurance or annuities, but also the differences between long and short-term care. Would you elaborate a little bit as to why someone would go into a short-term care program versus a long-term care program, and how that can affect not only cost, but the ability to get that coverage?
Sure. So I think that when looking at this, I would always tell anyone when the discussion is had, specifically here at Premier, what we would do is we always start with the traditional product, being because probably it's the most widely known, that would provide for assisted living, nursing home, and home care. So fully comprehensive product. Why we usually would go to a hybrid is we would have somebody say, what if I don't use it? So it's usually an upsell, if you will, to the we want to eliminate the use it or lose it objection. So therefore, we have to have some permanency. Also, the other reason is that there might be somebody that is worried about rate increases. They want it more on a permanent chassis. So we have to change the chassis to a life insurance or an annuity chassis. Therefore, though, it will increase cost. The reason why we may go the other way, though, is let's say we have somebody that has some health history. Long-term care and hybrids are both very heavily underwritten. We do have significant amount of medical rate ups, a lot of declines, and adverse decisions. So when it comes to someone coming in, and specifically now that we're out of open enrollment, we have lists of medications coming in. We have a lot of phone calls coming in right now saying, hey, save some money during open enrollment by switching to this plan. What do we have to meet this premium threshold? With short-term care, we will often see the lower premiums, much less underwritings. We don't go for cognitive screens. We don't go for medical records. We also have a wider base for issue ages. So we can actually issue up to age 89 with these products. So it's kind of like a transition. So we really can, these products and the flexibility have allowed us to pivot through a lot of different audiences and specifically a lot of different financial and medical situations. So it's really allowed us to expand the long-term care solutions arena, even though the traditional long-term care industry has shrank over the years.
Awesome. What do you see, Katie, as a persistency difference? Is there a gap in how long someone keeps a short-term care policy versus a long-term care policy? Is there a persistency difference that you've seen or that you can recognize, or what are you seeing in that area? Because it's not just what we sell, it's what we keep.
No, I definitely don't think that there's a persistency issue at all with any of those three options. We see a persistency ratio of 97% or above with all three products, to be honest with you.
Yep.
However, placement ratios are much higher with the short-term care, and that is simply because of underwriting.
Yeah.
No other reason because of that, or besides that. It premium thresholds any of us can control, and I know with working with the multitude of agents that we do, we sit down and we really design these things up front. That is the one thing regarding long-term care solutions is we do a lot of legwork up front. We really kind of put our heads together and work with the agent and kind of design something to customize for that client. But on the other side of it is that when it comes down to the premiums itself, is we are building around that, and the placement is much higher because we are doing less underwriting on the short-term care side.
Awesome. And that's, I think, one of the things I really wanted us to highlight as well is the fact that, what's the old World War II adage of the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. A lot of times when an agent that isn't as familiar with long-term care will look at that and go, I don't know how to put it together. I think that's one of the strengths your department brings to these is that assistance. You don't have to have all the answers because your crew either has them or they find them. And I think that's wonderful. If someone wants to become more involved in long-term care, how is the contracting process? How does that come about? And are there any additional requirements by the regulatory bodies that say, hey, you got to have this in order to be able to offer these products? Can you give us a little bit of background as to that part of the process?
Absolutely. So actually, it's a lot easier than what it seems. Depending on which product we decide to utilize, I am not somebody that's going to send you a million and four contracts. We are going to actually contract as we need, unless it's a pre-appointment state. The only thing that you would need to do if we decide to write traditional long-term care or a hybrid long-term care, your state may require you to be certified. We would check that ahead of time, and that's going to be based on the resident state of the client. We would check that ahead of time. But as for short-term care, there is no certification required. The only thing we would need to do in order to move forward on that is to check if it's a pre-appointment state. If not, we could get appointed as we were taking an application. But as for the certification, I am happy to, if we want to, John, we can just send out the link. There is a website I would tell anyone to go check out to make sure that their state, if they would require any certification on a traditional chassis. But first and foremost, I would welcome a phone call. Let's talk about it. Let's see what would fit your portfolio and what would fit in your business plan. Because the last thing I'm going to do is have you go out there and enter this arena without any experiences, without having the conversation and some tools that might just make this a much easier conversation with your clients.
Awesome. No, thank you for that. That's one of the many talents that you bring to this arena, but that support I think is invaluable, particularly when we look at products that, well, gee, as Yogi Berra said, I come to a fork in the road. I got to take it. Which direction do I go? And your advice and sage counsel makes a huge difference there. When we look at some of the programs that the Medicare community deals with, that deals also with people that are turning 65. And as Joanne is inquiring on the panel today, if you have a person who's turning 65, going on a Medigap plan with a prescription drug program, she's going to, however, be in a skilled nursing care facility quickly. It still requires underwriting, so there are some things that we need to look at perhaps a little more creatively to address that need, or what might your suggestion be in that area? Kind of throwing a fastball at you there, Katie, but what would you think how we could address that population when so many people are chasing the T65s?
So we're saying that they need to go into what was you cut out a little bit there, John. What was the
Okay,
facility
sorry.
where we're going into a facility?
Yeah, so this is one of the things that they're gonna, the person appears to be, from what I'm garnering from Joanne's question here, is they're in a bit of ill health. When they come into Medicare, um, they're going to be looking at a short-term care facility pretty quickly. She's been diagnosed with blood cancer. Thank you for that, Joanne, clarification.
Okay.
So underwriting is not there to the largest part in my mind. How do we help them with that? Is it some other sort of counsel? Are there programs that we offer that could still address that? Because nobody's going to buy a claim, but how would we look to that?
Well, it would depend on the situation. So we do have a couple things. One would be we could have an annuity hybrid. We have some immediate annuities that we could do just a small leverage bump on it. That while we know it would be on a SPIA format, that we might be able to leverage some money up front. The other one would be is that we do have actually a short-term care product that would take active cancer we just could not utilize that. Now it wouldn't be for a facility; it would be for home care utilization only. And that product we could not use the cancer for reason of claim in the first 6 months. So there is a 6-month pre-ex on it. However, we do have some options. So actually, I would say just give me a call and let's walk through the details. If
Awesome.
not, it might be something that we could work with the annuity department and kind of go for that first option that we have. Like I said, the SPIA.
Okay. And that brings up that next question of SPIA. What is a SPIA?
Single premium immediate annuity. So
There was a
that is
softball for
simply
me
going
there.
that is simply going to be that we would put some money in, we would transfer some money in, or you could put cash, and we would leverage it for long-term care or whatever need that they may have.
Awesome. Thank you. Another question that popped on, and then we'll move on to some of the other pieces of this is Leanna is asking, she's new to short-term care. She recognizes long-term care as a period, generally a benefit period of 5 years. What is the typical term for a short-term care policy?
By definition, short-term care is going to be 360 days or less per setting. And we're working on we have one carrier trying to do 365, but basically a year or less per setting. We do have one carrier right now that has a product that has 360 days of facility care and 52 weeks of home care. So someone would say to me, Katie, that's 2 years of coverage. It is. However, it is 1 year per setting. When I say that, one facility setting, one home care setting. So it cannot go over a 1 year care setting or care period per setting.
Awesome. Awesome.
So that's
And
kind of be
I
the
think
limitation.
I would think that would kind of be one of the draws to this, because it's not just the person that is dealing with the malady, it's the person that has to care for them. And many times when they go home, that's a caregiver at home or someone they bring into the home. So it really addresses that. A bit of
Well,
the
and the
things that
one
are
other thing that we didn't talk about, John, and I think the one last thing I'd like to add about that too is that with those products on the short-term care chassis, and I think that the biggest intrigue I'm getting on this, and to be quite honest, it's mostly people that are in the Medicare world, is unlike traditional long-term care, these short-term care products pay the client or the insured cash. These are cash indemnity
okay.
products. So
Yep.
big difference. And yeah, on that note, that's what I would leave anybody with, is just for them to know these are paying cash for people to stay at home.
Regardless of any other coverage.
Oh, absolutely. In addition to any
Yep.
other coverage.
And I think that's something we really need to bang the drum on here too, because a lot of times we'll see a caregiver drawn down by taking and delivering that care, and how that affects them in addition to the person that's fighting the cause of this care. So you can see that with parents. One of the things I want to throw out here really quickly is Katie's information is available on our website at premiersmi.com. You'll notice right below the picture, it will say email me. Well, that's a link, an active link off the website. But you can reach her and Katie, forgive me, I'm going to lay this out here. 1-800-365-8208 is our toll-free number. You see Katie's extension below her picture as well at 226. There's a jot form on the website that you can complete with different questions, and we'll get you the feedback. Katie's wonderful folks will do that, Katie and her team. But we want to make certain that you have that access as well. And we will do an overall follow-up that we had gotten away from to include some of the link information Katie mentioned as well. So Janine, in your particular question, I think that is something that we really need to have addressed on a one-on-one with Katie about some of the specifics, and going through that and making certain that we can address your questions specifically and take care of it. And the same with you, Leanna. We want to make certain that we get you the detail specific to your situations and address it in that fashion. So, Katie, thank you for the input that you've delivered with us here today, and realize that what we spoke of in long-term care, short-term care, is an adjunct to a lot of the things that we're doing on a regular basis anyway, but perhaps had been ignoring. And we want to make certain that we can deliver that, much as what we do when we address, well, hey, when all the systems shut down and we do the celestial discharge, what about life insurance? Well, final expense is one of the key programs that we offer at Premier, and the life insurance department can really make a difference for folks who have a need beyond some of the base medical coverages that come with it. And so we want to make certain to deliver upon that information as well, including systems that help you market that and market it effectively. For those that are facing end of life discussions, this planning tool through Legacy Safeguard can make a huge difference in alleviating the concerns that a person has, give people that peace of mind, and lead once again to additional discussions on different programs that are necessary. And some of that might include long and short-term care, but it certainly does include the expenses that are left at the end of our lifetimes and how they're going to be addressed for ourselves and for our loved ones. And that information, once again, too, is available through our Medicare Center program. And we want to make certain that we're able then to put you in front of folks and be prepared to answer these questions. So you have to do a little bit of prep work. And obviously, when you run across a situation that Katie's described in detail for us, is are we prepped for that particular discussion as well? And sometimes that is a delivery system that's necessary on a specific basis. So we want to make certain that some of the things that we're doing to prepare for the Medicare world, well, we're cognizant of the fact that there may be some additional steps we need to take in order to address specific needs. And the government can help us with some of the different tools that are out there. We talk about preaching to the community with different presentations. We have some things that can be made available to you in that regard, taken from the government and their tools, so you don't have to worry about compliance and how some of these things work together or not. So that's available to you. And we're doing so because we realize we're not putting all our eggs in one basket. We have to tailor a situation for a person's specific needs and be prepared, as Katie mentioned, to pivot from one solution to another and from one delivery of information situation to another as well. And that's why we keep going back to the electronic tools and how we incorporate in an entire system to make certain that we're delivering that information and directly addressing the needs that we have discovered through our normal marketing activities we do each and every day as part of our personal marketing plan moving forward. And so what we're going to deliver to you through the programs we offer with Premier is the fact that, hey, we're in a completely different world than when I started in the insurance business longer ago than I care to admit, I guess, where, hey, we progressed past the chisels and granite. Everything's gone electronic, and that even starts with the contracting process. So we want to make certain we have the tools available to you to make that as simple and as easy as possible. There are requirements that come with different things, obviously, but we want to facilitate that to make it as smooth as possible and as quick as possible. Poor use of the English language there, but so our tool, our Sure LC, our Assurance Pay program, can enable you to do some contracting electronically. When we're looking at, as Katie mentioned, you got a whole bunch of opportunities here with a whole bunch of different companies. We're going to contract as we need them. We may directly access links to a carrier to even speed up that process to make certain that we're addressing the need for the product, and we're doing so in a timely fashion. We also want to make certain that we're protecting your financial wherewithal, and we do so through a discounted errors and admissions coverage program for qualified agents. What makes you a qualified agent? You got to program with us. You're contracted with us for something, but this is something that you own. It's not being added to a blanket E&O for one program, and you got to think about how am I going to cover the others. And for as large as Premier is, or some of our competition out there as well, no one covers everything everywhere. So do we have a system that will protect you regardless of whom you contract through? And this enables you to do that through this errors and admissions program. We do also offer discounted continuing education to keep your license in play through our association with WebCE. We give you an opportunity to add to your own benefit package through a modified guarantee issued DI policy for yourself on which you're paid a commission. And much as where today's presentation is being recorded, past presentations have been as well. They're available on our website on the page that gives you some access to different programs from in the past, and they're on our YouTube channel as well. This is really important because it gives you the opportunity to go back to, hey, we talked a lot about today about what Medicare doesn't cover, but how do I approach these situations and be knowledgeable? So we want to access some of the recordings that Katie's done with some of the carriers in this area, the marketing concepts that come into it, some of the generic marketing programs that we have in play that can make you a difference in your community, be it in reality or a virtual basis. And having access to these on a 24/7 basis can make a big difference for you. This tool, I keep going back to Medicare Center. It enables you to create that base coverage so we know what things are going to be on a year by year basis, do so compliantly, store it for the periods that you need, even create that presence on the internet through your personal URL where people can go and investigate some of these base programs. But it all leads into that contact management system so we can go back and make certain that we're addressing all the needs of our prospects and clients, and we're tying them into ourselves. The different surveys out there will say your persistency is much higher, your retention is much higher on the programs based on how many plans you have in a house. Doesn't have to be with the same carrier, it just has to be with the same agent. That agent's you. And this can tie in our renewals and help us on our so-called salary year over year because of the renewals that come into play. And that is a huge way of expanding our benefits by just working with people we already have a relationship with, and how that can make a difference across the board. I'm sorry, I had a program pop up here. Yeah. So some of the different questions that are coming across that are specific in nature, we're going to make certain that we address those individually. We do also have different programs out there that offer different incentives to do business with a particular organization. So we have a page on our website that gives you an idea as to what your full comp is on some of these programs. For those of us engaged in the Medicare Advantage and prescription drug world, we know that that doesn't come into play because max comp is set by the government. But the other programs may have carrier initiatives that give you additional marketing dollars, additional dollars for your sales efforts, and how that might transfer over into helping you qualify for a carrier trip, and premier incentive programs as well. We've brought back our producers convention that had the hiatus dictated by the pandemic that we're all endured and am enduring moving forward. So this is a great way for you to get an additional incentive to work with Premier through these programs. We want to make certain that we're putting you in front of folks through different needs, and that includes marketing support through direct mail based on production. We drive down the cost of the mail, and that can make a difference because you can qualify a couple of different ways, and then you can use some of the outreach available through our vetted preferred lead vendors to make certain they have systems that can deliver those leads back to you as quickly as possible, but also give you the opportunity to use them in the best way possible. How can we open doors to visit on all the different programs that we have available? And this can really be that door opener for you. We also have some programs out there through some of our partners that enable us to plug holes in our calendars. This is a particular program that makes available fresh and older direct mail returns where the cost will vary according to area, time to time, but it's a great way to supplement your marketing activities, plug holes in your calendars, and do so with folks that have raised their hands as to, hey, as they used to say on the Fast and Loud TV land, give me some of that. How can we make certain that we're delivering the information for folks that are asking for it? So this gives us a way of reaching out to people that have said, I need more information. We do have an internet lead program as well, independent of some of the others that we offer. One of the things that I would mention on this, outside of the fact that it's available for both final expense and Medicare leads, is it's a microwave lead system. People, boom, you open it, they can click right away and say, hey, I want some of that. They also expect a return communication as quickly as possible. I had a friend who got a lead through an internet lead program at 2 o'clock in the morning. She responded at 6 o'clock. They'd already gone someplace else. I'm not saying that to knock this as a lead source, because it's incredibly viable, can make a huge difference for us quickly. We, however, want to have a system in play that enables us to respond quickly as well. The Lead Center program within Medicare Center, this is a varied lead program that is integrated into that system, goes into your CRM, can be delivered either on a live transfer or on a transfer of information into your system, but it gives you then the ability to control lead flow according to your budget. How much do you want to spend? Yeah, they're not free, but they're deeply discounted in many circumstances. And by golly, every now and then they even have a sale on these leads. But it gives us another lead source that's already part and parcel of the systems that are in play to support us anyway. So a great way to integrate into things overall, ties into the book of business you already have in your version of your client database, can make a huge difference as to a full calendar and success, both personally and financially. We want to also make certain that we're aware of the other tools that are available, and that includes a T65 locator that you can download to your smartphone, your laptop, your desktop, whatever electronic device you choose to use. Register, they find you have a program contracted with us, and you can actually lay out where people live in a particular area to concentrate your marketing activity in one fashion or another. Now, obviously, you can door knock for some products and not others. So we want to make certain we keep this compliant, but it really gives you a real life view of these are my prospects in this particular area, and how can I best address their needs when I'm in that particular location helping other people. I mentioned this briefly a little earlier when we talk about the referral system. This gives us an opportunity not only to speak to folks and expand a lead that we're addressing in the sales process, but it's a way to go back and engage our book of business through that CRM and mention. One of the things that we have discovered as a shortfall in medical coverages with people on Medicare is how they address their needs for long-term care. We got some great options available. Do you know of folks that would apply to, where you're not exactly addressing the individual, but one of the first things they'll do is raise their hand and say, well, I need that information. So it's a great way to go back and involve your book of business with programs you have at your disposal that can make a huge difference in their coverage and in your persistency. We do all this because we want your business. We want to be referable. We have the resources there that can make this as simple as possible for you. I cannot overestimate the value of Katie and her team when it comes to a specific product that causes some consternation among the agent force with, I don't know how to handle that. Yeah, you do. You've got Premier Marketing, you've got Katie Novotny and her gang, and they're going to help you with this part of your business. And we want to make certain that you're aware of that and that you can speak to your agent friends about it, because it can become part of your marketing plan very quickly. We can integrate it into an overall system of going back to our book of business once again and involving new people through some of the marketing techniques that we can utilize. So all that said and done, I'm going to look really quickly. Katie, thank you. You've covered many of the questions that are out there. Some of them are specifics that I'll get to you at the close of the presentation, so you have that information. Other than that, For folks that have dealt with Premier in the past, that we've worked together and you're on this presentation, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for that business. We deeply appreciate it. We feel it's a symbiotic relationship that you're garnering value as well. And we want to deepen that relationship through the different programs that you may not be as familiar with or need greater information on. And that's why we asked Katie to come on and help us here today. For those of you that are just investigating our organization and the programs that we offer, thank you for that opportunity. We look forward to delivering information to you. If you have a relationship with an agent marketer or an agent success manager within our programs, within Premier, they're going to help you across the board and point you to people that are subject matter experts in the different areas of need. Thank you for that opportunity. But most of all, since I have now talked longer than I should, sorry, Katie, and sorry, everyone else, I want to thank you for the time that you spent with us today. We hope that the information that has been delivered to you today will directly influence your success moving forward throughout the year and throughout, in all honesty, your career. It's a long-term investment in you and in the products that we offer, and we thank you for taking the time to thoroughly investigate that. So in closing, I want to thank our guest presenter, Katie Novotny. Thank you once again, dear. Thank you for everyone else to come
Absolutely.
on, came on. And
Thank you guys so much. I really want to express my gratitude. I really appreciate it, and please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help where I can.
we'll make certain that the contact information is there for folks as well. So until we're able to speak again, I'm going to wish you good selling. Thanks so very much. We'll talk to you soon.